to look at the part that's been unreasonable. It's what I would call the environmental part of the regulation. You know, we're never going to have perfect technology. We're just not. And there's always going to be somebody out there who's got some problem with it. And to give that person months of the ability to delay these projects and to come up with a new objection has cost us probably a year and a half. I would say honestly about a year and a half of delay. Of course we beat the more radical environs. We beat them in the appellate court. So you know we're beating them back, but it all takes a lot of time. So I would say land use regulations are probably the most onerous and extreme. The energy part of it, the energy laws, the things that are under the jurisdiction of the PUC, I think have been eminently reasonable. And I think we've done, you know, we've had a very deliberate process on that. I don't know if that answers.
What were the trade-offs when you decided to locate the project in California? I assume that the benefit was the availability of the PPA versus maybe the more restrictive land use requirements in California as opposed to Nevada.
Well, it's a really great question because all things being equal, I would have built in Nevada. My own experience was, it was really difficult to get the property tax legislation in California. It was my first sort of major effort, and we did it, but it was difficult. Went into Nevada in about a week's time. We got sales tax exemption, we got a property tax exemption. I'd never experienced anything like that, going to, you know, a Wild West state. And they loved us, and they were union. I mean, the whole thing was just really going to work quite well. But the problem is that California is not really equipped yet. The transmission system, guys, the electric transmission regulation, is not equipped to have long distance travel of electrons. That's one of the problems that we have to encounter as a new kid on the block. And you need to kind of realize that what you've got, in contrast to natural gas, is you've got a system of toll roads. So going to Nevada to build our project, even though it was a few miles over the border, suddenly entailed a whole paying for part of NV Energy's transmission system, which made the price that we'd already promised to PG&E and Edison uneconomical. Not to mention the politics of going to Nevada for our first project. But even if ignoring the politics of that, just the way our transmission system is priced means that you can't really seamlessly go to another state. If you could seamlessly go to another state, what you'd have is a real highway system in this country. A real highway system where you could take our southwest region, which has got the best sun in the world, you'd build some projects, you'd ship them to Colorado, you'd ship them to the Northwest, you'd have a national highway, but you don't have a national electric highway. You pretty much do on the gas side. Look at Ray to see if I'm right. That is pretty much correct. I used to practice in this area. But on the electric side, you don't have a highway system. And it's one of the major obstacles we have as a country.
So first, congratulations, 2.5 gigawatts of solar power purchase agreements. One company, you know, is, I think, a milestone for the world, definitely for the U.S. in particular.
Thank you.
I'd like to have you and David up at some point for the broader discussion about centralized versus decentralized and what the differences are there. And from your perspective, I agree with you. I think there needs to be centralized systems, but I also think there's a place for distributed generation, so in a moment we can do that. One of the questions I have for you is just your technology, concentrated solar power, solar thermal, into steam. It's now being competitively attacked, I guess, or competitivized by PV. And just what's happening with that in the central systems, and how you see that market now evolving as PV prices continue to come down, and centralized systems like yours are competing on that, and I've seen some central thermal projects now getting converted to PV. What's your perspective on that?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a very current question. The first thing you need to do is sort of ask yourself, the PV system, how much of it is already being subsidized? Because all the claims that are being made about how low PV prices are suspect. And they're particularly suspect because of the contribution of China to all of this. So one of the questions you have to ask yourself is how real it is, how real are these declining prices? And kind of do at least a filter on how much those prices are declining. The second thing that you realize with PV systems, and it's a challenge they're going to have to meet, is that they have, if you look at a chart of how they generate, they have tremendous variability. Which means that they need a lot of backup, which means that you need to cost in the backup, the backup from combined cycle plants and other sources. And so until you have an effective storage system, a battery system, to even that out, PV is going to continue to have major problems. And that's one of the things that we did as a company, is we realized that our technology is a much smoother technology where storage, a form of storage, and for us it's not battery. I mean, it'll change over the years. Is the function of storage is really to extend our generation in the morning and at night, but it isn't to even it out. So we don't depend. Our technology doesn't depend on the rest of the system. We're very independent, whereas PV very much depends on what's happening. So you need to factor in the price of that. You need to factor in the pollution or the pollution or the air quality impact of suddenly having CTs generate all during the day and at different times of the year. Let's see, did I answer your question?
So am I correct in understanding that where concentrated solar thermal is happening, in the Southwest primarily, where you have that sort of light, but we don't have it in the Northeast, so your technology unfortunately is not applicable?
We could help you if we had transmission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agree with that. Is PV though competing now with that technology?
PV is competing, and it's fantastic. In fact, what you're going to see probably with our technology is you're probably going to incorporate PV in the next generation. PV absorbers, say, around the boiler, because there's a tremendous amount of wasted light. The mirrors are not getting it exactly right pinpointed on the boiler to heat it. So to the extent that there's some waste, if you had PV there, you'd be extracting more energy. And that's what you're going to see the next 10, 20 years. How we extract all this energy from light. So we're all changing, and what we're doing, and it won't be the Ivanpah project, but the next project is going to be storage technology. So it'll lengthen our day, it'll smooth out whatever fluctuation. And I'm not sure what the PV people are doing about that challenge, but it's a pretty big challenge. Hope that answers your question. It looks like I'm being ushered away.